People of Earth, my name is Colin, your name is Audience, and welcome back to this. Finally, the day has arrived. We are completing the college years series. I know y'all have been waiting for it for a long time. The day has finally arrived, and it's going to be great. So if any of you are confused about what this series is, or want more information, or want to see it in its complete form, or just get the whole scoop on it, go ahead and check out some of the other vlogs. I'm trying to remember exactly what numbers these college parts have been in, what vlog number they are, but I honestly can't off the top of my head, so I'm just going to put it in a separate playlist that is labeled the college years or something along those lines. But those of you who have been watching religiously and are, up to date on all the tea that was happening, junior year ended with me getting kicked out of my friend group. Not, my only friend group. This was specifically a friend group that I had become a part of over the course of COVID, during school, at school specifically. My friend group at home with my high school friends was still going very strong. But at this moment, in May of 2021, I was kicked out of the friend group. I had just turned 21. I had been kicked out of the only friend group that I had had my entire time in college, or that I had felt close to. And a lot of feelings were going on, a lot of emotions circling, very similar to kind of how I felt about what happened in my sophomore year, where I got kind of kicked out of a friend group there. And now some of you may be saying, well, now Colin, there's a pattern, that you keep getting kicked out of friend groups for not controlling yourself. And maybe that's true, or maybe it's just that other people don't mesh well with my personality, and that's fine. Everybody's welcome to have whoever they want in their lives. That's not a thing that's necessarily up for debate. That summer was the first summer we got to have swim team again. The reason we didn't have swim team in 2020 was obviously because of COVID. It was not a good environment to be having, kids get in a pool swimming together. I got to go back to my summer job essentially, and for the most part it was fine. Again, very similar to that sophomore year attitude, where something kind of really bummed me out that it had happened, but there wasn't too much I could do about it. So I kind of just went with the flow, did my summer job, and that was that. Over the course of the summer, it did slowly become obvious, as I've mentioned in the previous installment of this story, that the individual that had kicked me out of the group was really the only person who felt that specific way about it. And instead of saying, hey, this is how I feel about it, they used their, friendship with the rest of the people in the group. I don't know exactly how to describe what they did, but they essentially just put words in everybody else's mouths. They essentially said, listen, you're making everybody uncomfortable. Not just me, you're making everybody uncomfortable. And of course, that hits pretty hard to somebody who, I like to think I'm pretty tuned in to when I'm making people uncomfortable, or if I am making people uncomfortable, because it's not something I do often, or I like to do. So purposely not, clearly not on purpose. And to be perfectly honest, at the time when they said everybody is uncomfortable, I kind of had an inkling or an idea that, that was probably a bit of a generalization, that probably wasn't actually the case, and as it turned out, I was obviously correct. Then we jump forward to the beginning of senior year. We arrive back on campus, and everything kind of goes back to normal a little bit. The people that I was friends with in the friend group, besides that one specific person, kind of welcomed me back into the group. Things are going fine. I'm still a little bit cautious about how I'm acting. I'm not being too loud. I'm very cautious because I understand that that's how delicate things were for me, that if I was too loud at one party, that could be it for me. That could be the end of the friend group. And these truly were people that I cared a lot about. And so I was, very nervous. I was like, this is the first real friend group I've had in college. I don't want to lose that over something stupid. Like me yelling again. If you watch the last episode, it's very obvious that I wasn't yelling. I was just being adamant about my opinion on something and making sure that people knew my opinion. And that definitely, now that I'm hearing myself say that, makes it sound like I definitely was yelling, but I promise I was very chill about it. I'm very worried about everything that comes out of my mouth, how it could be misconstrued, all of this. All the while, this individual that, has somehow taken a certain amount of control over the groups, planning, what we do, what's okay, what's not okay. To keep it very short, being manipulating. That's the best way I can describe it. They were an extremely manipulative person. Everybody now recognizes that, but in the moment, everybody was just trying to keep the peace, essentially. And I think that's a good thing, but it can also be extremely, extremely dangerous, depending on, who's in your life. If you are in a situation where you're just trying to keep the peace with somebody who's clearly not trying to keep the peace with you, get them out. It is so much nicer and easier if that person is no longer in your life. But that is a long time before we get to that point. So over the course of all of this, stepping lightly, we all kind of on our own acknowledge that this person is very manipulative, but rather than have a whole dramatic, punch out, drag out situation, we just kind of go with the flow. We're all very easygoing people, so we're just, as long as we are still having fun and we're still enjoying ourselves the majority of the time, we are okay with a little bit of this manipulative behavior, and we're just trying to get to the end of the year, essentially. So working through all of that in combination with, academics, being the, president of a club at this point, a lot of other stuff going on. Specifically as leader of the club, president of the club, we ran into several situations at this time. We had a member that was just causing problems. There were so many problems happening, and 95% of them stem from just people purposefully misunderstanding or misconstruing something that somebody else had said, or simply refusing to see things from somebody else's perspective, or just any number of things that could be easily avoided, and they were just causing problems. And so at the end of the day, what it came down to was we did have to end up banning a member, which I personally, and I stand by this to this day, didn't want to do. This person was clearly having a very hard time socially, finding the mid-ground of what is okay to talk about, what's not okay to talk about. Especially in this day and age, that's very, very common. That's not something that, is super unique. I think there's so many people out there who have so much trouble figuring out what is okay to talk about in a group of people. But this person, it was brought up by a bunch of different members that they were just making people uncomfortable. And I wanted to give them benefit of the doubt, not because I didn't think that not because I thought that people were lying about what they were doing, but just because it was pretty clear to me that this person simply had no idea that what they were doing was wrong, even though we kept messaging them, we kept giving them warnings, and saying, listen, you need to be more careful, you need to understand that certain topics are not okay to talk about. And that was kind of when things started to go sour a little bit, with certain members of the club towards me. As much as people may hate it, playing devil's advocate is a really successful way to look at all perspectives of the problem. And so that is essentially not precisely the approach I was taking, but I was attempting to look at this problem, this individual, the problems that they were causing from all perspectives, from their perspective, from the group's perspective, from our perspective, from outside, just trying to look at it as a whole to figure out if there was a way that we could resolve this in a better way than we were planning on solving it. And what it really came down to is, and why I was so steadfast on waiting and postponing this kind of sweeping ban of them from the club, is because it's been revealed to me on multiple occasions from multiple people that this club that I was president of was extremely important to certain people, and had the propensity to be extremely important, both in a mental health capacity, both in a enjoyment of college capacity, and finally just in a, just an overall existence capacity. To summarize, essentially, and to be perfectly frank with all of you, people essentially told me that um, the club had, in maybe more words than this, saved their life, which is incredible, and that's spectacular. And I was, having that information, very wary of banning anybody, recognizing that the club could matter that much to somebody, and it could be that important that, separating somebody from the club because of certain actions that, again, they were struggling with. They were trying, maybe. It's unclear, but it came down to it that the only real option was to ban them, and it was not my favorite thing to do. But the fact that I kind of took so long to come around to the idea of that banning, or took so long to agree with everybody that a ban needed to happen, is kind of what soured some fellow officers and some members of the club towards me. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I would much rather make a decision late with all of the information and have a few people be mad at me than make a decision in the spur of the moment and have something bad happen because we didn't have all the information. So essentially, it was just chaos, and I was the president, and people really hated that I was the president. Some specific people hated that I was the president, and frankly, that sucked a little bit. And then that spiraled more and more to the point where they started really messing up things for the club by being petty and by allowing their personal feelings towards me get in the way. Simultaneously, at the very beginning of the spring semester, on the last day for registration for classes, I got an email from the, I can't remember what office it was, the Office of Graduation maybe, basically letting me know that my application for graduation had been denied. And the reason for that being that I was missing 1 credit hour for graduation, which is crazy. I don't know how I did that. Hell of a shot, if I'm being perfectly honest. I don't know if I could ever do that again on purpose, because I really don't know how that happened. But to make matters worse, as I said, it was on the last day of registration for classes, so I really couldn't find anything. And thankfully, looking back on it now, I am amazed that this is the way it played out. But I found a practicum course for my major that basically required me to complete 60 hours of work in a field that was related to my major, and in return for that 60 hours of work, I would receive 1 credit hour and thus be able to graduate, which was amazing. It was great. I found it, and lo and behold, the work that I found was sports media with JMU Communications. They were kind of in the infancy of producing Olympic sport shows, meaning baseball, lacrosse, volleyball, that sort of thing. They were producing those, and obviously these were just the spring sports. So just kind of, I really just did baseball, and that got me to those 60 hours. That got me to that 1 credit hour, and that got me to graduation, which was incredible, and obviously a really great experience for me because I'm still doing sports media work as my career now. So really worked out for the best, even though a little chaotic week there when I was missing 1 credit hour and wasn't graduating. So as I mentioned, in spring, club elections come along. I am leaving office because I'm graduating, obviously, and we don't have enough people running for office. We have basically 2. And that's really problematic because 2 people can't run that club. It's just not possible. Or can't run it in the capacity that it should be run. I'm sure 1 person could technically run the club, but at the end of the day, you need 5 or 6 people, and that's what's in the Constitution. Constitution of the club, not the U.S. Constitution. But anyway, so we have nobody running, and I am sending announcements every week saying, listen, elections, they're coming. We don't have enough people running. We need more people to run. And it slowly spirals and spirals and spirals. We get to election day, and I have to sit in a Discord call with several people who hate me, essentially, and a couple people who are just very concerned about the club. And I have to sit there, and they ask questions, and they say, listen, we don't have enough people running. I've been very clear. I was very clear in all of my announcements about what was happening. I wasn't hiding the fact that we only had 2 people running. I specifically was saying, listen, if we don't get enough people running, if we don't elect enough people, the club is going to end. And even with that, I'll explain in a moment, but even with that, nothing changed. And so we went into election day. It was kind of a disaster. It was a mess. And suddenly, out of the woodwork, comes, one of the officers who had resigned because they were so upset over the way that I was running the club. To be perfectly honest, I consider that most of the issues that they had with me was because they were a member of the club for much longer than I was, and yet they lost the election to me and were actually my vice president. So I consider that most of the reasons that they disliked me was simply because of that fact. But that might just be ego, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but I'm pretty confident in that statement. Regardless, they come out of the woodwork and they basically say, well, listen, me and my two roommates, who are also members of the club, we, open it back up and we'll make sure that people get in there. And those three people sign up, they run, and they get elected. And at this point, the club had taken so much out of me, both mental energy, just all of it, that I didn't mind. The club lived on, and that was my job as president. And I think that was, if I can be perfectly honest, the difference between me and that individual is, in many ways, and I'm not going to put words in people's mouths here, but in many ways, I wouldn't be surprised if they were the type of person who would rather see the club end than a personal vendetta get reversed on them. And that's simply not excusable in a position like that. You have to put the good of the club above any personal feelings, above any relationships, above everything. You have to operate outside of emotion. And that's really, really important. And I think that I'm confident that I did a good job. And if I can be perfectly honest, sure, maybe the club itself was a little bit smaller, did not function as widely as it used to before I became president. But I think it's important to note that it was through COVID. And I was a member and an officer of this club through COVID and through the year after COVID, where there were still, safety precautions in place by the school. People still had COVID on the forefront of their minds, did not want to be going out and, gathering in groups. And so I think the fact that the club, if not maintained its size, maintained its existence through all of that, I'm pretty proud of that. And that would be my definition of success, given all of those issues that we dealt with. And so now moving forward into kind of later spring semester, it's April. Basically, I think I mentioned in the last vlog, but one of the people in this friend group, not the person causing all the drama, but one particular girl in this group, I had pretty significant feelings for at this point. We just got along really well. The vibes were immaculate. Everything was going great. Friend group was fantastic. Aside from the manipulation that was going on, we had all recognized that, and we were all doing our best to forget about it and just power through till the end of the college season, college career, college experience. And so we were doing our best. We were, having as much fun as we possibly could in our last kind of 6 months. And we traveled a lot. Went to DC one weekend, went to Annapolis one weekend, just traveled around a bunch, had a bunch of fun hanging out with each other. And they're a very dear group of people to me. And it was so wonderful to be able to, finish off the college experience with them. And so in April, I've, kind of decided something about April must do something to me because, freshman year, the big thing there happened in April. Senior year, the big thing happened in April. And that big thing would be that I asked her out. And I basically was returning a phone charger of hers that she had left over at our place. Returned it to her, said, hey, we should go out sometime. We should get dinner sometime. And she gave me a thumbs up. Yeah. Which, not the response you really expect or want. But at the time, I kind of was like, listen, I'm just going to do it. And so I did, and that was the result that I got. And then a couple days later, I sent another text message just to be very clear about what was going on and say, listen, I was really serious. I would love to take you out to dinner sometime, go on a date, see if this becomes anything. And basically, her response was, "Well, we're really good friends, and I don't want to ruin that." And that's something I respect a lot. Friendship is extremely important to me. It's extremely important to her. So, but don't worry, that's not the end of it. So basically, what happens is we all go on a campus crawl a few days before graduation. We drink our way across campus. Nick, my very good friend and roommate from college, we're pretty sure he got alcohol poisoning. And that's just a whole story on its own. It's probably on a podcast somewhere. But anyway, we do that. We graduate. We have a graduation party in Stanton celebrating that we have all made it through college. And that is wonderful. I move out of my, I don't move out yet. I depart basically after graduation straight to New Jersey, go for beach week with my high school friends, which is great. This entire time, Nick, as I've mentioned, my roommate, and the girl that I was really into, who had given me the thumbs up, they travel to Puerto Rico. The entire time that I'm in this beach week, I am just thinking about it. Just what what am I missing? Is anything happening there? It wasn't. But just like, what's going on? Not over her, which, as we know, is a problem that I have. And during this time, the girl that I'm now dating, who I had asked out and who had caused me so much pain, so much emotion happening, sends me basically a job application that she thinks that I should do. And it's a video position in the Shenandoah Valley, and I apply and I get it. So I come home, start moving all of my stuff from Harrisonburg out to Stanton, so that I can then begin living there and start this job in the valley. And as things progress, we go the summer. I'm working there, and then that brings us to kind of August and September of 2022, living alone really for the first time in my life, which was a crazy experience. And so it was kind of just like a lot of turmoil going on. And so we get to September. I date somebody who is a student at JMU. Things go well, and then they end just kind of naturally. They fizzle out. And then come October 30th, October 31st, I sent a Snapchat to Carly, my now girlfriend. I send her a Snapchat that basically says, "Listen, I apologize, but just like I'm having a really hard time getting over the fact that that we aren't gonna like date or anything." And just as much as I would like to say that this was a like calculated move to get like convince her to be like, "Oh, like whoa, he's still hung up on this," it really was just me trying to be like screaming into the void a little bit of just like, I can't do anything. I don't know what to do about this. I need you to know this, because like it's on my mind every day, and I can't do anything about it. And I'm so sorry if I end up doing something that makes you uncomfortable, whatever. If somehow this blows up in my face, I just need you to know that this was a thing that has been going on for a long time, and it's not just like a suddenly it happened situation. And the response that I get back from that is essentially, "Well, actually, I've been thinking about it too." And that was like, holy shit. Like, holy crap. Oh my god, it worked. Not that it worked, but it finally happened. And now we have been dating for almost exactly a year at this point. Our anniversary is in about 2 weeks, our 1-year anniversary. And that was kind of a wild ride. But yeah, so I mean, that's a little bit after the end of college. But hopefully you are satisfied with the ending episode of this vlog, or of the little mini series within the vlogs of the college experience.